interested in how this park, this little thing that gets so much use, can also support wildlife. So, I don't know, we've seen coyotes out there and all that stuff, so.
Yeah. Yes.
I like Steve's idea about leveling the park, because one of my dislikes about the park is the access for seniors with wheelchairs, or just seniors in general, and strollers. Because I see people trying to go up the stairs with strollers, and there is a ramp on the far end, but in order to get to the play area, they have to go through the grass or go all the way around, and it's difficult with a stroller or a wheelchair. And handrails would help, but having a level area or at least a ramp so the seniors can go up there. And, I have my dad in a wheelchair and I can't take him up there. So.
Okay, thank you. Yes?
Yeah, in previous discussions, the leveling of the areas come up before, and I think we're looking at something that's pretty cost prohibitive. Not only that, I hear the composition of that ground is very dangerous to be dealt with.
Well, there's some serpentine. There was also lead from years of cars on the freeway with lead gas. But that was abated on the top when the upper section was done. Yes?
I think to step back and say that my major two likes about the park are one, it blocks the wind, and one, it blocks the noise from the freeway. And if you level it, you're going to lose both of those, no matter how many trees you put up. But we definitely need more trees to start replacing the ones that are dying. We're going to start planting new trees.
Yes?
I'm not sure when I look at the diagrams, there's a lot of topography and levels, and you're just talking about levels. And I'm wondering, when I just look at it visually, there are parts of the park, like for example, there are slopes that are just unutilized, or now where the dogs are running up and down, which could probably be, sliced off, and the dirt from there could be used in the enclave area, which is slicing downwards, and replaced. And I'm wondering if we've had a professional look at it and say how we can holistically actually just displace dirt from one part of the park to the other and really create levels. So we're not going to take away truckloads and truckloads of debris and create a lot more costs for us, but in a very budget-friendly and efficient manner. Just displace the dirt around the same place, just because we have so much ups and downs that with the same dirt we could come to a nice evening. And have we had some sort of a landscape artist or urban architect look at that? Because that would be worth something.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of what we do, so. So I think we can move towards that. That would definitely be something that we will come back with.
Could you repeat what was said? I didn't.
So because the property has a lot of slope, and it has some areas with some small flat sections, and it's generally not that usable. And because of use going up and down in the slopes, you get the erosion, you get areas where vegetation doesn't take, and so by creating flatter areas, it will make it more stable. I'm not using your words, but so the idea would be that if you do take some dirt out of other areas, let's say out of the top to level it more, then that can be used to level out other areas. So rather than hauling everything away, you're balancing what you remove to what you fill, so that you're ending up with a net increase in usable flat spaces. Is that
Precisely, yeah.
Yes.
I just want to say one of the things I like about this park is there is no playing field on it, which is unusual in Potrero. All the other parks have a playing field on it other than starking open space. And I like the habitat observation. I think this park should be looked at in the context of what's available in our other parks and what's not available. And it's been mentioned that with Arkansas Park being torn up, the dogs have migrated to McKinley Square. And what happens in those other parks is going to impact how McKinley Square is used. And so I think we should be mindful of our other green resources and how we can kind of make them sing together in a way that's good for the community, good for the environment.
Okay, so I think it'd be worth doing an inventory of what the other park resources are in the vicinity, and then make sure.
The same effort, 3 years ago, there was an effort to do green connectors throughout the hill, which
Yeah.
seems to have also been dropped. but it seems worth also reviving.
Yes?
For the next meeting, would it be possible for you guys to tell us what the constituency of the dirt and the ground, if you were going to level it, is, and where the fence could be moved to? It seems that we have a lot of things here that are before the cart and the horse. That should be, I mean, in these kind of discussions should be known.
Sure. I think it's very good. We can find out.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
It might be implied by that, but I think what might have got lost from Steve's comment is, in addition to removing the dying trees, is to reforest the trees so that 10, 20 years from now, we have large trees there also. Because I guess the like is, I like the big trees, but I also hear what Steve's saying, is we don't do something to create more big trees, we're not going to have them 20 years from now.
So you're constantly adding and sometimes taking out. So it's
That's
something
the way
that
it
doesn't
works.
just stop. It has to yes.
Oh, just a quick question. I know I came in late, so you might have talked about this, but I wanted to understand, I know we're in the brainstorming and idea generation phase. Are we trying to put some ideas on the whiteboard so that we can figure out, and then put a cost associated with each item, and then figure out a grouping as far as what are the highest priority and highest interest items that we can cover under that budget?
Yeah. Well, I think we're not trying to get that far today. What we're trying to do is get as much input as possible. And the next meeting, we're going to come back with a summary, and then alternatives, and how those ideas translate into the grant. And then we will assign costs. And then the third meeting, that's when we're going to talk about priority and phasing.
Because there will be trade-offs, and there are obviously some items that will simply not be covered by that much money. So some of those points are even moved.
And there might be some near-term approach and a future vision, which is a pie in the sky. So that, yes.
It occurred to me that it seems like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. We have a short-term proposal kind of that's in the works a little bit, and then also a long-term proposal, and some seed money, I don't know, that 25,000 seed money. If somehow that could be kind of put together in a way where there's at least a conversation between the key players of those groups, so that there could be a short-term fix on some of these immediate problems of security lighting and stuff that would roll into the long-term thing and help seed money grow. Seems like kind of a basic first step.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right in that we don't want to do things that have to be undone later or something like that, and that there is a short-term, there's the possibility of developing a list of short-term things that have already been thought of.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing is to do things where we don't conflict with a bigger vision. So we do things there's plenty of things that can be done in the short term that still could exist and not be damaged by, let's say, other changes, like expanding the play area or adding grass or leveling out some stuff. So I think it's trying to figure out where we're going to go and then look at pieces. So we're kind of approaching it that way. Yes?
I don't see very many young people here today, but in terms of being responsive, going back again, what was in that park years ago, there were 2 or 3 splendid slides that went down from the grass level down to the first path. And they looked as if they were designed by kids. Now, when an end playground is put in, you have a quintessential slide designed by Mr. Kalasha.
Well, there are concrete slides that there's a precedent for that now, and new ones, right? In building it. So it's not impossible to imagine that you couldn't have them.
Vernal has a slide that goes down from a couple of layers. I think he's referring to an earlier slide that really traversed the whole hillside.
There were 2 of them.
There were 2 of them. You went down, and then you got off that slide, you got another one went down. You used to watch kids do them. It was just wonderful. They were kid-oriented slides, not big people slides.
Right.
I mean, they literally cascaded from the top of the hill down toward the garden, toward the community.
That's a great idea. I've ridden one of those slides in Turtle Heights all the time.
Yes? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
While we're talking historical things, years ago, the way that the park was controlled by gangs and homeless people, you wouldn't go in the park. It was unusable, and there were no lights until about 5 or 6 years ago. But the way that all the weeds and everything were dealt with in those days was the homeless would start fires, and the fire department would come up 2 or 3 times a summer, and they would do a controlled burn. It would be all burning, and they would just stand aside and hose down the areas they didn't want to destroy, but let all the other weeds and foxtails and everything burn to the ground. So I don't know whether that's something that might be considered. I know you've got the wildflower, you've got the wildfire area, but that downward slope is a very large area, and I don't think that the whole thing is being developed by wildflowers and native plants. So it might be something, I'm just putting it into the equation, if that's how they dealt with it years ago.
I'm just imagining the kids going down the slide with fire. They're gonna...
Well, that might be the side.
John, I think there's no chance of a cricket pitch.
Well, it's a really good practice. It is a really good practice, honestly, and it is done in more,
Well, it's a very large area, and some of it's just not being controlled at all, and it used to catch fire. And if you want to have sections of that downward slope that you're going to plant wildflowers in and revegetate and native plants, then you might just consider the cheapest way to deal with all the other areas and keep the growth down would be to have a controlled burn. And the fire department would come up and just stand there and watch it burn. It happened 2 or 3 times every summer. And it hasn't happened for years now, but it used to be the way they controlled that growth.
Okay.
The unwanted growth.
If you want to do controlled burn, you might try controlled dose.
One of the capture ideas would be to, I hope the long-term plan has a kiosk so that questions.
So information
Kiosk so that the community groups can actually share what they do.
Steve's card on it all the time. And there was a comment.
Yeah, does anybody know what's slated for the enclave area? Because there has been some talk about building stairs down the side of the hill, and what would that connect to?
I think we were going to try to keep our conversation focused.
But does anybody here know what the slated use of that is?
Community garden.
Is it community gardens? Is that definite?
I thought someone was brought up earlier.
The use for the enclave.
In the DPW area, the enclave, what's the slated use of that area?
Well, I can speak to that, actually. There was, I'm part of that neighborhood there on the 900 block of Vermont, and I'm Henry. I'm part of the SAFE group as well as the Vermont Street Neighborhood Association. And there are multiple uses that have bandied about to be used in that area, and one of them is to plant a community garden with some tiered areas and also a small play area to be adjunct to the play area on the top of the hill. Maybe it's certainly a smaller area, but some things for younger kids so moms don't have to come all the way up the hill. But certainly some benches and reforestation of some plants along the fence line. The fence line is going to be replaced in the longer term. We don't have enough seed money at this point. We only have $10,000 that we're working with for the first grant. So the idea is to do some initial structural improvement to build a retaining wall, and from there then do some planting in that region, and then hopefully seek more grant money to go forward and have community outreach to get the particulars worked out. But the idea is to have a few different uses for that space: garden, kid use, a few trails with some benches, and the like.
Thank you.
Yes.
What are the contours? 1 foot contours, 2 foot contours, 5 foot contours?
That's a good question. I believe they're 5 foot.
I think they're 5 feet.
Yeah.
Grid is 50 feet and the tick marks are 25 feet.
No, that's
So
the
the-
grid.
It's got to be 5 feet.
It's not steep right here, it's really steep over here.
It looks like there's only one line at the stair area, so I would anticipate that those are 5 foot increments.
From the street to the top of the park, it's 5 feet probably.
So
5 foot sounds right.
this would, at 5 feet, that would be 60 feet.